Today is May 4th, 2020. This is the Cluster API AWS provider office hours. Cluster API provider for AWS is a subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. And this video is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube when the recording is done. Please add your name to the attending list and let's go through the agenda. So Jason, over to you for the release announcement.
Yes, just letting everybody know that version 0.5.3 has been released. It's mostly just some minor bug fixes and features, so please go check it out and let us know how it works for you.
Very nice. Thanks, Jason. All right, we have some group topics here. So let's go with the first one here on mounting additional data disks.
Yeah, so hey guys, I'm Matt. May have seen me around. There's our friends over in CapZ. We're implementing one of the features that we're also looking at, external etcd volumes. And they submitted a proposal to modify or add additional fields to the kubeadmin config for file system config. So there's a fork that they're working against on CAPI, and kind of the goal that each of the cloud providers will implement their specific volume mounting in that regard. So it's kind of it's work in progress at this point, but there's a PR out there that I'm working against, and I'm kind of working on the details in this proposal with the CapZ folks. So if anybody wants to take a look and just kind of see what the work, kind of bounce ideas, the direction that we want to go, but you can kind of see the direction that is currently being tested in regards to setting up these volumes, mounting them in the user data section, and things like that. Besides that, just there's a PR that's ready to merge the custom image lookup PR. It looks like there's some issues with the testing, but I just retested it and it worked fine. The framework, I think there was some AWS related issues, but they don't appear to be fixed. And that's it for me.
Very cool. I had a question about the mounting thing. I know you and I had talked on Slack about some possible difficulties having an infrastructure provider tell the Bootstrap provider that you need to run some commands to go mount some things. Did you work through the fact that they kind of need to talk to each other?
Yeah, it looks like there's a couple of different possibilities in the proposal. So at like a high level, there's the ability to like bake those into the image with Image Builder and kind of abstract the logic of actually mounting and detecting what type of infrastructure the image and what type of volumes it's using underneath. There's also the option of including, the Bootstrap provider, that additional field that has the kube ADM pre-steps.
Was it this or was it something?
That's it.
Commands.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I know this was something that we knew was going to be a challenge when we split the kubeadm bootstrapper out and made it its own thing. So I think this is like, we're just going to have to see what we can come up with, and it may take a few iterations to get to a place where it's not so annoying to do it.
Yeah. The main thing that we're kind of running into is the provider specific, the block devices showing up differently to the OS, depending on how the, like even NVMe and AWS, it'll show up differently than
Right.
in other cases.
Okay. Well, I will. This is on my to-do list to try and get to this, but there's about 7 other proposals in front of it, so we'll see how that goes. Anybody else here have any questions or comments on any of the stuff Matt was just talking about? No. Okay. Thanks, Matt, for sharing. This is looking like good stuff. Vince?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, what's the expectation for the PR ready to merge, like versus the work in progress?
You mean like review-wise or what?
Or like, I mean, do we want to get that merged, or we want to wait for like a 1707?
Oh, the
These
PR,
are unrelated, right?
that's unrelated.
They're unrelated. Okay, like that
Yeah.
wasn't clear to me. Sorry.
I think I should have put a
I'll
different
fix it.
indentation.
There we go.
So for the data disk, like we're just, I guess like you're working off the fork, but like then we'll kind of like bring it back together when that everything is ready upstream, right?
I think so. I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it, but I just created a PR that it's work in progress. It's just public, so anyone can see the testing that we're doing.
Whoops, wrong link.
Got it.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask like about the hard-coded like devices in there. I guess like that's a placeholder, right?
Like as far as the
Device.
devices themselves. Yeah, so I kind of just hijacked the user data creation that way, just as a quick and dirty, like just test, make sure that the flow will work. But the idea of the proposal is to include those in the Bootstrap config.
I've fiddled around with disks and volumes in AWS and noticed that, like you said, the naming, like the device that is exposed isn't super consistent all the time. And I know you have control over it from an AWS perspective as well. So is there some way to make this less error prone for the user? Or
the way that I found was if the underlying AWS instance type supports NVMe, which I believe a lot of them have moved into that direction. If we include NVMe tools in Image Builder in the image, we can actually there's a function there's a metadata that gets added to the NVMe volume that attaches the AWS volume ID to it.
okay.
So from the instance, you can have parity between this volume matches this block device.
Cool. Did you file an issue or do a PR for Image Builder for that?
There's a issue, but there isn't really any. I haven't filed any work against it.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good start. Jason, I know you've been in this space before to some extent. Any comments here?
No, I just finally got through the upstream proposal, and I think that's probably a good path for the initial go through, and I'm sure we'll figure out some rough edges as we go and continue to be able to tweak it.
Okay. Cool. All right, let me get over here for the next one. Andrew, losing access to mutable EC2 fields through machine deployments.
Hello. Yeah, so I brought this up in a thread with Jason a little bit earlier. No, today's Monday. Last week, and It's funny. We only noticed this now, but it actually happened in the V1 Alpha 2 move. Like there are a couple of mutable fields on AWS machine. Additional security groups and additional tags will actually get changed in AWS if you modify them. But there is no way to change those through machine deployment because you're going to get all new machines. And I'm not bringing this up because I think it's something that like needs to be solved through machine deployments. It's just a thing that happened and is funny. So I wanted to bring it up on the call.
Yeah, I saw the Slack thread. It's frustrating, I would imagine. um, I think Jason asked if this is the sort of thing where like you need this behavior fixed or not. Is this gonna be a big problem for y'all?
I hope not. I mean, so the fix, right, is really just like go patch all your AWS machines and then also patch the template. Like there is a removing of a webhook in order to make that happen. But like it's not so bad. It's just I would be curious to find if like anyone is really like making nodes that aren't machine deployments. So like, is anyone really using those mutable fields anywhere? What is kind of another question.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as we've pushed, I don't know how publicly or how broadly we've pushed this advice, but the same way that with Kubernetes, if you're doing just a one-off pod, you're doing it wrong. You know, we've tried to say the same thing with machines versus machine deployments and KCP. So yeah, I don't know.
I think the thing that I would find interesting is discussing sort of the alternative, right? Where we could, in theory, invent a reconciliation loop for Kappa that looks at the template and then copies it to all the machines through the machine deployment, like kind of reverse the flow there, the information flow. I don't know if I like that idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, but like that's sort of where I'm imagining recovering kind of that mutability from. And mostly I just want to start imagining it because like with AWS tags, you know, whatever, it's we have so many different ways to slice that onion, but there are other EC2 fields that may want more active reconciliation, or we may find the need for, you know, like instance type or something. I don't know if that would be Kappa's domain ever, but like there's a lot of stuff in EC2 land that's mutable that our customers may demand they be able to mutate, right? And we used to have a path by adding additional attributes to the AWS machine reconciliation to that. And if we want to give up that entirely, that's a valid like project decision, but that's sort of where I'm at is if we want to give that up, we should make that call. And if we don't want to give that up, we need to start sort of imagining how we would recover it.
Sounds like it's worth an issue in the repo.
I was gonna add, like, from a copy point of view, like, it's gonna get tricky to add like mutability functionality, right? But like from Kappa point of view, like as you said, like you could have like a different controller potentially that like reconciles a template, but that means the template will have to be mutable, which breaks the hashing assumption that like we make upstream. I guess it's like a balancing act. I wouldn't be opposed to that, like per se, but that's only because like I'm very comfortable with AWS mutable fields, like, but I don't know about other providers. So like I guess like if you need this, like I would actually really make it in Kappa specifically, so that like we can keep it contained and then learn and rinse and repeat like upstream when we get there. We'll need to figure out the whole hashing situation. It would be great if we had have at each field to say like, hey, this is actually mutable, but it's the responsibility of infrastructure provider to reconcile that. It's just like we don't have any way to get that annotation for that field, like even if we have one. So yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's the lack of this transparency to the hash is actually kind of a feature, right? Because it avoids replacing the machines for making the mutable change. But yeah, it's definitely yeah. I'll open a, or we'll open a ticket on the Capo repo, and we'll talk about it there.
Great, thank you. All right, I added just an FYI here. There's a pull request to deregister a machine, a control plane machine from the ELB when the machine is deleted, to try and reduce the amount of time where the control plane machine would still be a member of the ELB, but not be able to service requests. And so the health check, I don't remember the timeout on that, but this tries to reduce that window where the machine still looks like it's an available backend, but it's really not. I did want to point this out because there is one new role, or permission, I should say, that's required on the controller's policy. So assuming this PR does merge, this is just a heads up that when you go to the newer version of Kappa that has this, you will need this new permissions change. And Vince adds that it'll deregister if the machine is stopped as well.
And it will register back too, if, like when you run it again.
And I know, so we've had some internal requests from some of our teams that the addition of new IAM permissions is disruptive potentially to some of our clients, and it would be nice if we could find ways to make some of these changes optional, or at least have some sort of graceful fallback if they're not available. So this is just an example of a PR that makes a change, and I don't know if there's anything that we would want to do here that is a graceful fallback, like if you get a permission denied trying to deregister, just ignore the error, or emit an event or something. But it's a broader subject for food for thought as we continue to evolve the project. If we do have more IAM changes that we might want to see if we can be a bit more graceful for upgrading, at least in the areas where it's not strictly required.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah, I would add a note like to the PR, like to add a graceful fallback, because like it's like a nice to have for sure. But yeah, like could users like might not need that if they don't want to. It's completely fine. It will be a precedent, but I think it's a great one to have actually, rather than like I don't know the full story though about like making some things opt-in, some others don't. That's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it really, so I would just say that it probably affects two scenarios. One, you're upgrading from an existing management cluster to a newer version of Kappa. The other is maybe there's some aspects of Kappa that somebody decides, I don't want them doing that, which I find that probably less likely or not likely. Like, we're building a system and this is what it does, so you need to give these permissions.
Yeah. Which is better than like a heavy admin on everything, yeah. Right? So yeah. At least we have them specified.
Alrighty. Any other topics before we go into the backlog? No. Okay. Let me check this out. 3. Alrighty. So we just talked about this one, which we can. I'm going to
5.4.
Yeah,
I put probably. The PR in 5.4.
Yeah. Okay. And then API for CloudFormation generation and application. I haven't seen this before. Jason or Vince or anybody, have you looked at this yet?
I haven't, no.
Yeah,
So I believe
This
this
is the
is the
library
one.
part.
Okay. Oh, hey, Nadir.
hi. Yeah, so this again has come from our internal consumers who are worried about permission changes. So this is a way to more programmatically be able to construct them. So that allows downstream consumers, if they're using their own tooling, to create CloudFormation templates to be able to do that using the code that's in Kappa, and then attach things like trust policies for role assumption and extra policies or remove policies as they need to.
Okay, cool. And I see you have this active, so I take it you are working on it,
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah, in between other things.
All right, I'm gonna put this in O5X. It may come into O54 depending on what else comes in, of course. And last but not least is something from Seth, except provided VPC infrastructure with only a private subnet.
I think we
Yeah,
added the ability, right, a long time ago.
sort of. So this came up when Scott was sending a bunch of great docs PRs, because there's still code in there that rejects. So just this, if you have exactly one subnet, it will tell you that you need a public one. Otherwise, everything seems like it should work fine. So this is more about like fixing that one minor bug and then sort of setting an expectation, updating the docs that I made Scott change to cover this edge case, than it is about like doing too much work.
Yeah, so I was looking at this one and I have an honest, genuine question here. So I was looking at the difference between public and private subnets with AWS. And if I read it correctly from the AWS documentation, a public subnet doesn't have to get natted to talk to the other hosts on the internet. And a private subnet can get out to the internet, even though it's private, it would be natted, but you can enable or disable that based on your networking configuration. Is that accurate?
That and the internet gateway can talk back in is the other thing. So you can't open a connection through the like reverse NAT, into a private subnet, but you can into a public one via the internet gateway.
Okay. Makes sense. It seems like we should allow this, I guess.
I guess like the only thing we need to check is to disable the internet gateway, right? Because if there is one, we need one, right?
You're saying if everything is private, you don't want internet gateway?
Like if you're disconnected.
Well, yes, so if you're using Direct Connect, I guess, is one of the use cases that, so you're actually sending your internet bound traffic or extra VPC traffic back through a data center through some transit through a physical connection, then you won't have an internet gateway even in your VPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, when everything is private, like we didn't have that support. I think like we added the private ELB at some point, and then we didn't change this because we're still creating NATs and internet gateway by default, which we should. So I guess like the question is like, do we like add a new field to disable those, or like we add a field to enable them and default them to true, or yeah. Or we like if you don't add like a public subnet, we don't create them, I guess. But that's kind of strange for new users.
I mean, this is for the sort of advanced provided VPC use case was how I was thinking about it.
You bring your own VPC and subnet infrastructure.
So if you bring your own VPC, like the code shouldn't go in here though, because this is using the default route.
This is still, this is reconcile subnets, and I think we always do this, and I think based on this line of code here, if you brought your own VPC, but you don't have any public subnets, this says no. So I think we do get into this code.
Mm-hmm.
We do, because even if you specify an existing VPC and you specify existing subnets, we still do detection of other subnets that may belong to that VPC.
I see.
So it sounds like maybe we need some commentary on here, weighing in with what we want to do, and we can do that async and then see where it takes us. Okay, so I'm gonna, for the time being, put this in next. And if y'all want to come in when you have some time and add some comments, that would be helpful. All right, I believe that is it. So any last minute things? Okay, well, thanks everybody. Happy Monday.